Thank you for tuning in to Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Ungentrified takes an unfiltered view on pop culture, music, television and film, politics, current events, and topics central to the worldwide Black community. Ungentrified is a safe audio space for celebrating Black culture in its purest form. Thank you for joining another episode of Ungentrified. This is your boy, Kent Johnson, and I have an amazing person here with me today, and we have some things to talk about. But before we get into that, one thing I ask everybody that comes on the show is what's on their radar at the moment. So it could be your favorite jam, your favorite Netflix show, what book you're reading, what hobby you're getting into. What's on your radar at the moment?
Oh, man. Favorite thing right now is the Quincy doc on Netflix. Watched that the other night. Extremely profound, amazing, inspiring, motivational, slap in the face. Let me know I haven't accomplished anything yet. And, it was incredible. Musically, there's a cat named Cautious Clay. Cautious Clay. Super dope. Very big, bright, ethereal choruses. If you listen to it while you're driving, you will get a speeding ticket.
Because you just get lost.
It's just big. It's just big. Most singers, especially R&B, it's very intimate, right? But this is just big, and it causes a lot of self-reflection and just the sound. Sonically, it makes you just shrink. So really, really impressive guy. I think he plays all his own instruments, taught himself how to play everything. So that's what's on my radar right now.
Those are the kinds of albums I love. And I've been frustrated because I haven't found anything dope lately to fall in that. But that description reminds me of Michelle and Ndegiocello's Comfort Woman. That album is very immersive. Even Maxwell's second album is kind of in that space. It's another album like that. Ink. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Ink.
No.
All right, so I'm about to put you on.
All right.
Ink. It's these two brothers. They're out of LA. Their album, they have two albums, but the album that's the pinnacle is No World.
Okay. It's
almost in the vein of a Maxwell kind of 90s vibe.
Okay.
I play that start to finish, and that's my fall winter album.
Gotcha.
Whenever it's raining.
Gotcha.
So it gives that whole mood. But that's one of the few albums where I can play it from beginning to end and just fall into it. So Cautious Clay.
So since you brought up Maxwell, okay, so Maxwell's Submerge, right? Yeah. This is that on steroids.
Okay. That's
just
a perfect
big, deep bass and just amazing.
That's a perfect explanation for it. And that has now inclined me to be all right, I got to find out about Cautious Clay. Cool. Let's see, what's on my radar? And I said this on a prior episode, I've been real deep into learning the history and just the surrounding information around Santeria and learning the stories of how it came to be, how it's been in use, and how people are starting to use it again. So that's been kind of the rabbit hole I've been on. Yeah. That, and let's see, as far as Netflix, I ain't got nothing. Ain't nothing. Yeah, I'm kind of in that space where the TV's off more than it's on right now.
No, that's a good thing. And the TV is never on for me. But my wife is smart enough to know that if there's something she thinks I want to watch, she waits until I sit down, eat dinner. That way I'm kind of stuck.
And just lets it play.
She'll just put it on, So because if I say I want to see something, I never take the time to do it. But she just knows me well enough to put it on, and then I'm stuck.
Yeah. The Quincy doc is perfect, and like you said, I felt like that too. When they at the end, when they went down the amount of albums, the amount of movies, I was like, yo.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was crazy, and just for me, it was one of the things that stood out beyond for his travel to places where he'd been in, since the 50s, right? Where he spoke the languages fluently and just had his little favorite places to go and that sort of thing, was the fact that even at his age, he still has to do a lot of things himself by hand. He's so hands-on as far as getting certain people on the phone, making sure they're there, orchestrating where they're going to sit. I mean, that's quality control to the fullest, and he's a consummate professional,
When he was putting together the event, I'm not trying to spoil it for folks, but for the National Museum of African American History and Culture, he was just like, yeah, call Oprah, call Colin, get Common here, get John, and it was just like, and people were like, yeah, of course I'm gonna be there because you called me. I was like, I want that kind of
that's a different kind of pull, man.
Right.
Different kind of pull.
Yeah, it's just, people gonna show up because you asked them to be there.
Right.
Yeah. But that's also because he's definitely made those relationships. It's not because of just the work that he does. It's because he's genuine with these people. So you guys are probably wondering who I've been talking to for the last couple of minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and let that person introduce himself. So go ahead and tell the people who you are.
My name is Chris Classic, and that's about it.
You got to tell the people what you do, man.
So I am a creative, and I say that in the broadest sense possible. To pay bills, I am a songwriter and artist for film and television. I've been doing that since 2004. Everything from Transformers, Fantastic Four, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Empire, different ads for Dodge, Burger King, a bunch of different things. You can hear my music in places or films that you would have never expected it'd be me, just because it might be in the background or it might be on the radio when they're doing a car chase, et cetera, et cetera. But to date, over about 255 movies and TV shows that my music has been featured in. Most recently, I've kind of gotten into the fragrance department. Always been a fan of fragrances, decided to make my own. It's called Savoir Faire, to know how to do in French. Us as a people, we know how to do a lot of different things. And so my fragrance is for people of many layers. You can be at work all day and then go to an event and you don't have time to change clothes, but your personality changes, your role changes, your layers change. And I wanted a fragrance that, you could wear, in a corporate office or on the corner and still be quite comfortable and stand out. So.
Yeah, and it definitely does. It's a really dope fragrance.
Thank you.
And I need to get mine. I remember the last time we spoke was when you were about to drop the clutch.
Yeah. That's been amazing. So because it's a unisex scent, I titled my travel size the cigar clutch, because it's the size of a cigar. And for women, it can also fit in a clutch purse. So the cigar clutch is forever sold out. Every time I restock it, it sells out in like a week or so. So it's been a great blessing.
And it definitely, so I try to categorize my scents in seasons. To me, it's a very much of like a fall scent. So I should be rocking it right now. Well, if Atlanta figures out that it's fall.
Right. Well, I kind of forced the issue by default, since I've been a lifelong New Yorker and this is only like my second winter here. Once October comes, I got my Timbs, I got a beanie, I got a jean jacket, I have a cardigan, and people looking at me like, what's wrong with you? It's just a habit. I always wear a t-shirt and then a cardigan so that I get the feeling, and then if I need to take it off, I can.
So the reason why I brought Chris here is because Chris is also an expert in another area, and that area would be social media. He has a massive presence online, whether he'll tell you or not. And I don't know if he would say it either, but he's definitely an influence in the Black digital community. And
thank you.
The reason why I had an idea for this episode was actually my phone. So iOS 12 started this new option in there where you can see the amount of screen time that you have.
Wow.
Yeah. So I turned it on and let it go for a couple of days and was frustrated because I'm like, damn, I'm spending that much time on social media. I mean, part of it is my job, but it really made me think on how I was utilizing my time. So I started, I guess maybe that was a rabbit hole for me too. I started digging and trying to figure out like how long people actually spend on these apps. I had been at an Instagram event and they told us, and this was 2 years ago, like pre-stories and all of that, that people checked their Instagram 8 times a day on average. For teenagers, it was double that. For parents, a little bit less, but on the weekends, they jumped back up to like that 8. But when I looked at current numbers, it was like the average person will spend more than 5 years of their life on social media.
Wow.
5 years, which is actually 5 years and 4 months to be exact. And that breaks down to about 2 hours a day, like 116 minutes a day. When you think about it like that, you're like, no, I'm not spending 116 minutes a day online.
Right, but time is money.
Yeah, but you really are. And that screen time app on the iPhone definitely put that in perspective for me. So if you haven't turned that on and embarrassed yourself, go ahead and do that.
I gotta try it.
Yeah, but for African Americans, we spend about 19 hours weekly on smartphone apps and on the internet. And that's about 3 hours more than the general population. So to hear that and to know that, things like Black Twitter exist and just the experiences that I've seen from, building a company socially and people in your space, it's like, what does that feel like on the other end? For a company with a big following, I can hide behind that and have 2 separate entities. But for you, they're one. Yeah. So do you consider yourself an influencer?
Not anymore. And the reason why I say not anymore is I would say maybe, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when Facebook was very popular and Instagram was becoming popular. In New York, there were a lot of people who did things that were a little left of the norm for average, creative. And I considered myself an influencer then in the sense of, hey, I'm specifically inviting you to experience this in a way that you never have before. So whether it was, let's go to this rooftop that has typically just been for middle-aged white men, let's go here, let's come with our cigars, let's do this, let me push you to do something you haven't done, let's go and have a gallery tour, let's go, I considered myself that then. At this point, becoming an influencer is a thing, right? And so people try to become influencers. They work at becoming influencers. And so because I never worked at it, I can't consider myself one anymore. I like to start conversations. And, at this point, I've learned that I can't hold on to owning certain ideals. I can't hold on to owning certain efforts and pushes that are broad reaching, So I noticed that social media, when it first began or became popular, we didn't see a lot of hip hop artists showing their children, or we didn't see them in the space of being fathers. That was always something for the last 14 years. As soon as, MySpace was kind of popping, I always, had my son and I shared the day-to-day experiences. And now and I'm not saying I'm the one who made it that way, but I know I added to the conversation for sure. And I would like to say that, I'm a conversation starter, and I add to conversations that get amplified by people who are now considering themselves influencers. Yeah. Whether it be how men dress, the ability to, wear a blazer and shoes, but with jeans, and you're comfortable and you don't look up or feel uptight. Just little things that I've been doing for the last 10 years that now it's a thing. And so, I don't like to consider myself that, in name, but I definitely recognize that there is an influence that I've made.
Yeah, there are friends that I have that are in the same space that you are as far as impact,
Right.
and I use that word intentionally because they shied away from the term influencer now because of what the meaning has become.
Yes.
So they'll refer to themselves as an impactor, an exposer,
Yes.
an igniter, things like that. Whereas, I utilize, my natural intent to bring people together or to, expose people to new things. So
Right.
I've seen a major shift away from influencer just in when we pitch as Black and Abroad.
Yeah.
People they come to us as influencers and we're like, no, that's not what we do. We can shift culture.
Yeah.
We can spark conversation, but let's die down on the idea of influence.
Right.
Because it's a flooded market now. There's actually in New York, there is an apartment. It's like a $10,000 a month apartment, but influencers, quote unquote, can rent it out to take pictures. So it has like an immaculate bedroom. Kitchen is spotless, and it's like all these setups for where you can get that perfect shot that you can send off and get paid by a company for.
Right.
So the article, and I'll put that in the show notes for those who are interested, showed everybody taking the same photo essentially. So it was what's the difference in your influence rather, if you're all taking the same picture?
Right.
And I think people have gotten tired of that, especially in the realm of travel. We came in because people were tired of seeing a blonde white girl, galloping around the country. They wanted something different.
Right.
So that's where we kind of come in and shake the table. But yeah, when I saw the pictures, I was like, every girl took the same photo.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. One girl added a cupcake
to
it, like that. Right. But that was the difference. But it was like people are getting paid for this still.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's become very contrived. And hey, listen, I'm all about having things look great, right? Presentation is huge, and things that are aesthetically appealing are great. But when it becomes you're trying to be something that you are not, that is the part that turns me off. So when you can see someone's authenticity, when you can see that they're genuine. No matter if I've seen it before, I still gravitate to them because you can kind of tell that it's real through and through.
Right.
But a lot of people who consider themselves influencers they're doing a function. They're performing a function. It isn't intrinsic to their nature.
So speaking of things that are of people's nature, so you're very involved in your following that you built up. So like you said, you're a conversation starter. Your comments go deep on topics or whatever situations, and people have sub conversations within those conversations. And in that, people feel like they're really connected to you, like they know who Chris is.
They do,
and they do. But do you feel like people approach you differently in public because of the Chris that they've met initially online?
Yes and no. So, and one is positive, one is negative, and it's not the way you think. So, some people don't approach me because they feel like they don't want to intrude, right? And then some people do approach me because they feel comfortable enough to, and those are the people that I like. You know what I'm saying? I'm never, I may be too busy if I'm with my son and we're in Publix, right? And, I'm got to get back to the house to bring something home. But for the most part, when people do stop me, I would prefer you stop me and say hello than kind of like look at me the entire time I'm eating at a restaurant and then send me a DM 2 hours later.
Right.
Because then I feel I've been observed for the last 2 hours, So I think for the most part, people who get me and people who really understand that, this is just me, they feel comfortable to say at least hello. And what I've appreciated is the fact that men will say, yo, what's up, man? I just want to tell you, I respect what you do. I love following you on the gram, the way you are with your family and, your sons. That's awesome. Keep up the great work. That's incredible to me. As opposed to someone who's looking like, yeah, there you go over there. He probably, let me watch him to see if he's really about that life.
Right.
So when this lady comes up to me, they're looking to see what my body language is like. They're looking to see if, I'm trying to kick it to her, knowing that I have a wife. You know what I'm saying? So I do feel observed. But for the most part, I'm thankful that people feel as comfortable as they do to come and say what's up.
Do you ever feel like you have to maintain your persona online?
Well, it's the same thing. It isn't anything to maintain. I think if anything, it just holds me a little bit more accountable. Transparently, I will say that I've been places where, hey, I may see someone looking at me and they may be very attractive. Now, I don't have to say anything back to be, gracious of someone looking at me. And then they come over to approach and I'm thinking through my head, I'm like, what am I going to say when this woman who is very attractive is like, hey, how you doing? 9 times out of 10, she goes, I just love you and your wife. And so, I've learned that is my life. And, this is my second marriage. So when I was married previously, when I got divorced, I was single for a long time. That is about the time when my social media following became what it is. So, the crux of my social media following is women. I think my insights, they say, is like 61% women. And so what I know is my life is something that people like to look at because it's somewhat of a standard of, this guy has made mistakes in the past that he talks about. He tries to live the best life that he can. He's very involved in his children's lives and he's a good dude. And that's it. You know what I mean? And if I can be an example of good co-parenting, of, a man who's not afraid to express himself and still honor his wife and respect his wife in a public space and still joke and still be funny and still be foul-mouthed and still smoke cigars and still, open carry and still whatever I'm into, just be himself, kiss my son, and show the duality between, masculinity with feminine truth. I think I can be that. And I think people gravitate to it. So I just feel happy that social media allows me to be myself.
And a lot of people don't feel like that. A lot of people feel like they have to have, my Instagram me, my Facebook me, my work me, my friends. Like they're playing different people at different times.
Right. And because of those people, or people who are like that themselves, they observe me with the expectation that there's a difference. So I would add that to your previous question, because some people are waiting for the Instagram Chris to switch off. And it isn't until they realize that it's the same thing. That's when they're like, oh, okay. Then they really are enthralled. And so, I think sharing the way I do also is great for me because it helps me stay accountable.
So you talked about the negative side of like the comments and whatnot. What do you do when you have what I call thumb thugs? Like, well, first off, where do you think that energy comes from? And why do you think social media became a place where people could really express like their dark side?
Right. Well, I say this all the time, that people don't like mirrors, right? Especially if you have a spot. You don't want to see it. And sometimes things that I may share, whether it be very personal to me or just an opinion that I think should be said, it holds up a mirror to people in a place where they didn't expect it. You know what I'm saying? And so you may come to social media for escapism, right? You may listen to certain music for escapism. So when there's any sort of conscientious thought of responsibility, that can be uncomfortable for people. And so, some people, like I said, they don't believe that I am who I am because they're so used to the notion of people having a switch. So, if I state something about my wife, someone who is just kind of like, maybe they're mad or they just don't believe it or they just are upset that women are complimenting me in my comments, it may cause them to just react from their emotions. I bet you I could, whatever. And so for those people, I just let them be for the most part. I love witty responses. I love sarcasm in general. So I will respond in a way that is as witty or sarcastic as possible. It's never escalated to, anything outside of the internet. And usually some people are just hoping to get a response.
Right. They just want to be seen.
Right. And, like if you look at some of the gossip accounts, right, you will see people leave all of these comments that are so scathing. And I always wondered why. Someone can, let's just say the Shade Room post a picture of Beyonce. Someone will leave the most scathing comment. However, if they met Beyonce at the mall or randomly, they'd faint.
Right. Ain't none of that coming out.
And the whole reason that they do that is for the attention. They want the interaction. Sometimes, hey, listen, I realize I live in a metropolitan city and always have. There are people who are in the middle of nowhere, right? And they don't see anyone for days. And they may just need that interaction to feel a part of something. For the most part, anytime someone has said anything that was really outlandish, I want to say most times it results in them sending me a direct message. Hey, man, I'm sorry. I just want, I was just messing with you. And it's just like, really? Yeah, people on the internet are weird.
Speaking of saying things outlandish, rather, has anyone ever put you up for cancellation? We as a community are always quick to cancel somebody for, whatever adverse opinion they may have versus ours. Did you ever have a moment where people were like, cancel Chris?
No, thank God. Thank God. For a while, as I was dating, my current wife, there were some women who were just very upset because they didn't know her ethnicity because I wasn't sharing her in full. I was, just maybe sharing a limb at dinner or, something like that. And because she is not super brown skin at all, it was, oh, well, here you go. Now you dating. And so, there was that realm of, angst from a certain small group of people who were followers and just, upset that they thought I was dating outside of, a black woman. And once they realized, okay, well, she's just light skinned and she's Jamaican and Haitian, it was a lot different. So that was probably the closest that I've ever come to, group exile, what I mean?
It's funny. So on Black and Abroad, there was one day where we posted a picture. I think someone was riding a camel. And we got a comment when someone was like, I can't believe you guys would post animal cruelty. And
wow.
When people post stuff like that, I'm always inclined to go to their page and see what they like this about. Right. So I go to this person's page and I'm not using gender pronouns because I don't want to put nobody on their spot. But they had a picture of them in like the little dolphin exhibits or the dolphin experiences in Cancun. I'm like, this is not even a year ago. Did you switch up yesterday? Like, and you got on a leather belt. Like, when did you become Peter on the low? But it's just like, what? Yeah. People pick and choose what they want to be mad at.
Absolutely.
And, what was, cool Monday, everybody hates Tuesday. And it's like, you can't win. And you'll lose for trying to win with everybody. Yeah, it always trips me out. But like you said, you brought up a really good point about like people not wanting to see themselves.
Very true.
And there's been studies around how you can look at people's pages and see like changes in emotions, changes in feelings. And there are like key things that are indicative of like depression. And I wonder, do you ever go back and look at posts? Because we all have low periods in life. And, go back, look at posts, and you're like, I wonder if anybody picked up on what I was in with.
All the time. And I specifically and intentfully share things that are low, periods because I think it's necessary for Black men to see other Black men share in those low periods, because I think it justifies sharing some of the highs. There are a lot of people who their social media is a collection of, highlight reels, and they may share something once a month, once every couple of weeks. And it's just only when something great happened, only when they're, ordering a bottle in a club, only when, they got a new pair of whatever. For me, I always try to share things and hashtag it in a way that it allows you to go back as a reference and kind of look at the journey that I've been on. So when I moved here to Atlanta, my son was still up north, and I went back and forth every month. And so I hashtagged those experiences, the Juju journeys. Now, listen, some of them were sad, because it's like, man, I got to go back to Atlanta now. Or, and some of them were happy because I surprised them and it was great. So I definitely share in a very transparent way, especially things that are low, because I know what I see for myself. And I'm not afraid of exposing certain feelings, emotions, and thoughts, because I know what I'm looking forward to. And I want people to be like, I remember when he said he was going to do, I remember when he was down. I remember that, so that when I do share my higher and upper experiences, it's warranted and you feel the same joy that I have.
Is there anything that you regret sharing socially?
I regret sharing the extent of some financial difficulty that I experienced. And the reason why is, to date, I hadn't had anything that people could staple to my name. You know what I mean? And so if you would think about going back to like shade room comments, right? So if you could look at a blog or gossip blog under my name and someone had to say something negative, oh, Chris Classic, I heard he was broke, right? And so that no one would have heard that unless I said it, right? So I think sharing the extent of some financial trouble that I went through in the past was probably regrettable, because as a few select, all it takes is one person to write something on the internet, and if you Google it, it's there, right? So it could be 5 people who got together in a group and wanted to badmouth me, but it's still there. So I think that is probably the only thing that I've shared in the past that I regret, just because it actually I thought it was good, because it would show other men who may be in the same predicament, hey, man, you could just get through this. You could be thankful even if you're not where you want to be. I saw the good in it. Right. But, sometimes people who are looking for something to climb on, looking for something to use against you, they will. And I think that was probably the only thing in my past that I regret sharing.
What's something that you won't put on social media?
I think at this point, I won't share any more of my relationship with my ex-wife, just because she deserves her own privacy. And, she needs to feel like, hey, that was the past and I am my own person. I'm not, Chris Classic's ex or baby's mama, So I think I won't share any more of that than I have. So far, I've only been sharing to the extent of highlighting the value of a good co-parenting relationship, and I will continue with that. But other than that, just nothing personal regarding her. Everything else is cool. I think I'm going to talk to my wife. We're expecting, by the way. So
congrats.
Thank you. So I'm going to, talk to her about how she wants to bridge the subject of, sharing our daughter with the world, and if she wants to do that at all. But other than that, I'm okay with being an open book,
What's her take on the Chris Classic Instagram kind of community?
She is way different than me. We're not twins at all, and our relationship is very much yin and yang, and it's great. Some people, they're like soulmates in the sense that they're just like each other. We're not. And I think that's why our relationship is what it is. She's a very independent person, very, strong, and has always been. And I allow her to be that. In the gender roles, I lead from the back, so to speak, in the sense of you do your thing. I don't have to control what you do. So Instagram is something that she shares from a very private place. She has always shared very privately. I think she might have a Facebook account that she used once. She's not like me. She is also not publicly friendly like I am. So people will stop me in Lenox Mall and I'm okay with it. And I'll talk to you for 15 whole minutes, right? And wait, you got kids? And what's your kid's name? What school you go to? I'm that guy. She's like, please don't stop me and ask me about Chris. Please, she's that person. She is friendly to her friends. She is friendly to her family. But for people who she doesn't know, she's not outgoing like that. So she just laughs a lot of times at my interaction. But I think she is starting to see the value and the benefit of embracing people who you don't know via social media. Her followership went up a lot once, we got together. And since then, she created a book club that I was surprised that she actually created a book club that she chose from people who were her followers on Instagram, and they get together and they we'll meet at various places and read books. And, she's like, hey, I actually like these books, so that was kind of a shock. But yeah, she understands, we've gone places where meals were comped and hotel room stays were comped, and just, it's an amazing thing, social equity. So I think she's seen that and she understands that it's who I am, and she's okay with it for me. But her is a different story.
All right, one last question for you. Where does Chris go if Instagram goes?
Where do I go if Instagram goes?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be doing the same thing. I think that I would so several years ago when podcasts were kind of becoming popular, everyone, oh, Chris, you got to have a podcast. I love tech, but I don't like doing tech for myself. So in the 20 years that I've been recording music, I never wanted to learn how to record myself.
And that's so funny because you've been very tech forward in like the rollout of your music.
Oh, absolutely. But listen, I had my mixtapes on QR codes.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Like a long time ago. But like sitting down and learning to record myself or record a podcast, I did not want to do that because I'm a nerd at heart and I would turn into the technical person who didn't do the creative part because I was stuck on the technicality and making sure I got the best mic and making sure that this snare is the best one out of thousands. And, I'd become a hermit.
It's a balance.
Yeah. And I don't have that balance at all. I'm all the way in or all the way out. So I just stuck with being out so that I could continue to create.
I am like you, and it's hard for me to not nerd out about stuff.
Right.
And I've had to accept that in certain cases, the story is better than the audio.
You're right.
Or the situation.
Right.
And that people don't care as long as you are captivating them or telling them things that they want to hear.
Right.
So,
that's true. That's true.
But it's a balance between like being perfect or being heard.
Right.
Or, having everything dotted and crossed or having people actually experience it. So
right. No, that's a good question. I have a face for radio, so I'm thinking that maybe radio would be something that I would do. I love music. I love playing songs that people don't know or haven't heard in a long time. Maybe some sort of, I think I'm going to do a little bit of acting just to try it out. But for the most part, I'm just going to concentrate on making more music and working on a new fragrance. And I don't know. I think if Instagram went away, I wouldn't change. It would just be the method in which I shared would change.
Chris, tell the people where they can find out more about Savoir Faire, your music, and just all things you and what you got going on.
Well, my social media handles, all of them, are Mr. Chris Classic. So MrChrisClassic. My website is the same, mrchrisclassic.com. And you can find out about Savoir Faire at savoirfaire.store.
Cool. And you should, especially if you're trying to smell good in the fall.
Hey.
Right. This is giving me like fireplace chic right now. So definitely cop Savoir Faire. You should definitely put your ear to some of Chris's music. He has a crazy library of music. And I think you've been releasing stuff this year too, if I remember right.
At the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And, I'm at this place where I'm just trying to stay creative, and I've been watching everyone play their hand this whole year, and I haven't really been moved too much. So it'll be an interesting winter.
Chris, thank you for chopping it up with me, sharing a little bit of your experience.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, but I definitely wanted to share Chris's experience because I think he has a very unique one in the digital space. And I'm glad that he was an open book for us. So shout out to Chris.
Shout out to y'all.
Of course, you can find me, your host, on Instagram and Twitter as well at Kent W. Johnson. You can find the podcast on those same platforms at Ungentrified Pod. And all of the episodes are on the website. I was flowing for a second, got caught up on the website at ungentrifiedpodcast.com. Of course, if you're feeling like you want to share some favor, go on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. You're feeling extra giving. Tell your peoples about it. Subscribe. Put down a couple words about how dope this podcast is. These are all things that help me out immensely. And I appreciate you guys for doing it. Chris, again, thank you, brother.
Of course, man. As in the words of Bernie Mac, bust a move, move, man. If you feeling this podcast, man, just take 2 minutes out of your busy schedule and tell somebody about it. It really helps.
Definitely does. Check you guys next time. Peace.